Well, I would like to take this moment to invite the grandson of Joan to come and share a few of his memories of his grandma. And so this is Kevin Byers.
You can clap, it's okay.
Thanks, everyone. It's no easy task to try and sum up 80 years of life in just a few minutes. I didn't actually know Joan for the first 47 years of her life. I didn't even know her as Joan. It still feels weird, a little weird to call her that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I, of course, knew her as just Grandma. Grandma, she was born in Lethbridge, eventually moving west, meeting a rotten individual named Ralph. I'm not sure the last time he actually went by that nickname, but if you've never heard it before, trust me, it is a term of endearment. For the rest of this, I'll just refer to him as Grandpa, though. Grandma, she had two lovely children, as well as my mother. They're all incredibly unique individuals, all with very different passions and vastly different personalities. I guess what I'm really saying is, Grandma really had a handful with those three. When she wasn't corralling three kids, she traveled with Grandpa and sometimes with fellow members of their biker gang. Grandma crisscrossed North America several times by motorcycle. Heading down I-5 to the Oregon coast, across to the Florida Keys, up to the Niagara region, and seeing the falls there, and of course riding back across, seeing the Dakotas and Mount Rushmore. Probably not in that order, and probably over several trips. She probably would have rode to Hawaii too, if the ocean didn't get in her way. All in all, I'd say I had a pretty cool grandma. She was a biker. She drove a reddish-purple Thunderbird in the 90s. Doesn't get much cooler than that. Just think of the stories that I could have and did tell all of my friends. When I finally got my first motorcycle helmet, I didn't get flames or a racing stripe on it or anything like that. I wanted to be riding in style. So what did I do? I just got Joan. Some might say it was just Grandma's old motorcycle helmet, but I just wanted the coolest helmet on the streets. Much like I've been going on, Grandma was a bit of a storyteller, or at least she was a talker. No matter the topic, the place, or the people, Grandma, she had a story about it. Whenever we were together as a family, it began to get a bit late. Grandpa would always say, "Let's go, Joan." You knew at that point you had about 45 minutes until Grandma was done.
That's true.
Much what I've spoken today, Grandma's stories, they sometimes changed a bit. She may have taken some liberties with the specifics of the stories. Her and Grandpa would always bicker about the minutest of details. We'd always get there in the end of the story. The one story that she consistently told wrong, though, and I even heard this one in the last month, it's about how much I loved creamed corn. She insisted that I loved corn as long as it was mixed with mashed potatoes. I always had to correct her, saying, "Grandma, I very much despise vegetables, especially corn, but I do like making you happy, and I know if I finish my plate, I'll get dessert." So I guess with that caveat, you win, Grandma. I tolerate corn. Grandma, she was a loving person. And I think that's the perfect word for a grandma. Back in simpler times when you could take a child that isn't yours across the U.S. border with just a handwritten note from the parents, Grandma and I, we were out shopping, getting some supplies. She probably could have told you exactly what store, what we bought, what the weather was, where we were parked. I don't recall all those details. I was just spending quality time with Grandma down in the US, and we were just shopping for some supplies. Some supplies and toys, of course. I've been told I'm a bit of a spoiled only child, and I might have to agree. In this particular story, this shopping trip, we got some supplies, some food for the weekend. I also had my eyes on a brand new Jurassic Park dinosaur, so it's probably sometime in the mid-90s here. Really, really wanted that dinosaur, and at that age I had these great puppy dog eyes, which Grandma couldn't say no to. So of course I got a lovely Jurassic Park dinosaur, which I still have today. Grandma put it in the cart, started walking away, and I just said, Grandma, hold on. It's unwise to just have a dinosaur on the loose. Have you even seen Jurassic Park? You know what happens, right? What would your neighbors think if you let a dinosaur loose and it terrorized your neighborhood? So again, I was maybe 10 at the time, and I'm sure I made this exact rational argument. Apparently I was 5. Grandma agreed with my flawless logic, though, so a Jurassic Park Jeep was also added to the cart, complete with a rig attached to it to capture and subdue the dinosaur, just in case of emergency. And of course, after that, she swiftly moved down the aisle. Grandma! I yelled down the aisle. The Jeep needs a driver, too. At that point, I think she threw the driver and me in the cart, and we got the heck out of that store. I don't actually know the last time I was down in the States at their property, unfortunately. But I do have many fond memories of campfires and, of course, roasting marshmallows. And, of course, the peace and quiet, the escape in the woods that you don't really appreciate as a kid, but as an adult, working, bills, all that, it's a great peaceful escape. One time though, we were out of marshmallows, and I really wanted to roast some marshmallows. Again, my flawless child logic coerced Grandma to go into town and get me some marshmallows. Grandpa and I, we started a fire, probably with the wood that I had cut myself, so at least I put a bit of work into this situation. Grandma came back. I got a marshmallow ready to roast, and I burnt it to a crisp. Then I did it again. Then I did it again. Even at this point, I think they knew it was on purpose. The fact is, I don't actually like roasting marshmallows. I just like burning marshmallows. And was Grandma mad? Probably furious. But again, Grandma was loving. She loved to make people happy, so I'm sure she didn't mind for her grandson. 80 years, had a husband for 60 of those years, twice as long as some of us here have been alive. 3 kids, grandchildren, and a great-grandchild. Grandma traveled, she saw the country, lived an amazing life. What else could you ask for? That is truly an amazing life, and she was an amazing person. Amazing is how Grandpa described Grandma when I asked him, and I wholeheartedly agree. I hope it's not for a while, but when my time does come, I can only hope that my partner describes me as amazing, just like Grandma was. Grandma, thank you for your patient, loving nature, and for being an amazing person, an amazing grandma. We'll miss you, Grandma. We love you so much.
I'm going to invite Lloyd Smithers. For those of you who don't know, Cynthia is the daughter-in-law, and this is her son. And so he's going to read Psalm 23 for us.
The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will feel no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me. In the presence of my enemies, you anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Today, of course, as we give tribute to Joan and her life, can you hear me back there from if I talk like this? Yeah. Good. In our family, this is a normal voice tone. So. My mother had a little bit higher tone, but nevertheless, actually, I'm Brian Nelson. I'm a friend of the family, and known Cynthia, with the daughter-in-law for some time, and I've got to know Ralph. And learned a lot about Joan and her 3 kids as well. And one of the things that I learned about this family, of course, is that they like to travel. That life really was a journey. It started off, as you may know already, for Joan in Lethbridge, Alberta. She was born on May 3rd, 1940, and she lived there for some time before then going to Nelson, BC, whereupon she met Ralph. But the real story is that actually when they went to the church there, she was having communion, and Ralph spotted her in the church. And as a result, he thought, I'm going to make sure that I get to know this young lady. And so he did a great job. It didn't take him very long, and before you knew it, they were married on May 14th, 1960. And if anyone's good at math, how many years have they been married? 60, that's right. So you deserve an award. Actually, it's Joan that deserves the award. Nevertheless, 60 years. And of course, they had 3 wonderful children. I'm going to test you. I know the names of the 3 children, but the thing I didn't know is who's the youngest. And so I think all 3 of them are going to say they're the youngest. But nevertheless, we'll go in alphabetical order, which starts with our young man here. Everybody knows? Yeah. Jeff, good. And now, how many of you know how to spell the name? Okay, well, we'll leave it at that, okay? Afterwards, next we have, if we go alphabetical order, where is he? He's sitting right here. And this is our restaurateur, a very good chef, apparently. This is? Lawrence, good, okay. And then finally, but nonetheless, we have the very beautiful, where is she? I can't even find her. There, yes. And it starts with N? Nadine, yes, that's right. And so those are the 3 children. And so they did a few journeys with Joan, but once they grew up, Ralph and Joan really went on a lot of excursions. Kevin, who did a wonderful job in the eulogy, was sharing a little bit of their travels, but I got to know some more of their travels, including they went to a place called the Little Mississippi. Does anyone know where Little Mississippi is? Wow, where is it, Ralph?
Ontario.
Ontario, yeah. There's actually a place called Little Mississippi.
Outside of Ottawa.
Outside of Ottawa. So I looked it up to make sure it was real, and it was. I don't want any fake news for today. And from there also they went to Graceland, which is the home of Elvis. Okay, you're pretty bright people here. I bet you're going to get this one. They also went to Dollywood, and guess who started that? Dolly Parton, that's right. But do you know where it is? Anyone know where it is?
In the United States.
Well, it's in the United States, and it's in a particular city. Ralph, where is that?
Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and I checked that also, and that indeed is in Pigeon Forge. I had to check all his facts, but he is pretty factual, and I think Joan kept him on his feet.
There's another lady who was with us right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We had another one that joined on that trip. Wonderful. From there, they also went to one of the hottest places on earth, at least in the United States, and it's called Death Valley. Now, most of you know that it's very hot, but what you may not know, and Ralph told me about this journey that they took with Joan on a motorcycle of all things, is that it also has the lowest like sea altitude or whatever, or land altitude in North America. And I believe it's 282 feet, somewhere about that. So I thought that was quite interesting. And thinking about Death Valley, Lloyd did a great job of sharing from Psalm 23. It talks about a valley also. It talks about the valley of the shadow of death. And now when we think about the valley of the shadow of death, for the person who wrote that, which was David, he was a famous king about 3,000 years ago in Israel. You might remember the story of David and Goliath, and I don't want to mention about David and Bathsheba, but he was known for a few things, but one of the things that he did was he was a shepherd. And so I believe that in his hometown of Bethlehem, which was just outside of modern-day Jerusalem, that he would watch the sheep, and he came across this valley, and I don't know if he named it, the valley of the shadow of death, but it was such that it caused a lot of difficulty for the sheep. And I know today for the family that this is also a difficult time. I know we have the memories of Joan, but for you that grieve the loss, missing her smile and missing her laughter and missing her presence, it's very difficult. But what I can tell you about a shadow is that in order for a shadow to occur, there has to be a light. And you may not necessarily see that light, but the light is still there. And so I want to assure you that the light of God is upon you, that God will comfort you. And the reason I know that he will comfort you is because when we read on in that passage that Lloyd was reading earlier about, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So we know that God will provide that comfort, and I believe with all your travels and hearing some of the motorcycle stories that for Ralph and Joan, as Ralph alluded to, they must have had some angels, because very few can do the distance that they did on motorcycle and be that well protected. It goes on further in that psalm, not only talking about the comfort that God provides as the great shepherd, but also it mentions too that it says at the end there about many blessings that will occur. That actually, Lloyd, I don't know if you can pull up that last verse again. I went blank for a minute, and my Bible's in Spanish. I have a Spanish wife, so that won't help me. But if he's got the last verse, I'm going to get him to read it because I don't want to do injustice to this. Can you go ahead, Lloyd?
Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Good. And the version that I've memorized is, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now, for some of you here, you might be thinking of he was talking about a regular house, or perhaps a church like the one that Joan and Ralph met at in Nelson, which is still there, even though it was built in, I believe, 1889. It's one of the oldest churches. I don't know if it's the oldest, probably at least in Manitoba. And when they were married there, of course, in 1960, they spent some time at that church, and so they knew that there was goodness and mercy. And the goodness and mercy talked about isn't necessarily the church, but it's about heaven. And and I know you've been to Hawaii on several occasions, and Hawaii must have felt like maybe heaven at times.
Certainly did.
Okay. The beauty of it, but the description in the Bible of heaven is quite amazing. That there be no more sickness, no more pain, no more death, and we know that death started, at least in terms of when they went to church. They would have heard the story about Adam and Eve, and when they were in the garden, they disobeyed God, and not only did they suffer physical death eventually, but also the relationship with God was broken, and that the only way that they had access to God was through His Son, Jesus Christ, because God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Jesus shall not perish, but have eternal life. And then that eternal life is to have that relationship with God in heaven. And so today, family and friends, I want you to make sure that you comfort one another, that you do tell the stories of Joan, that you take good care of yourselves, and don't forget this moment. I think it's really special. And also that the comfort of God from, that thought of heaven, which, like I mentioned before, with no more pain, no more sickness, no more suffering, and no more death is something that we can look forward to. And of course, we don't want, our journey to end here. I mean, I want to live as long as I can myself. And I know that this time it is of God. One of the unique things that I found out today when I looked at the beautiful pictures surrounding me, and also this wonderful tribute here to Joan, is that she was born on May 3rd. My own mother, interestingly enough, was born on May 3rd. But just to add a further evidence, I believe that God His presence is here today. She passed away on July 29, and that's the same day that my mother passed away, July 29. And so I think that, to have that comfort, and the comfort I have is knowing that this is just temporary here on earth, but there is an eternal home in heaven that we look forward to. One of the things that I learned about because of Ralph and Joan spending time in the church is that he has not only some favorite songs, and in a moment we're going to listen to Just a Closer Walk, but before we listen to Just a Closer Walk with Thee, there's a letter that's going to be read. It's actually written by Ralph. However, it's being transcribed by somebody special, and I'm going to ask that somebody special. It's close to my name too. My name's Brian, by the way, but I'm going to ask if Barry will come forward, and he'll introduce who he is and tell us a little bit about why he's going to read this letter. And his wife as well, too. Sorry.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Barry, often referred to by my brother as my little brother. This is my wife, Fran, and I've got her up here just in case I crash. So we'll do our best to honor you today, Ralph. And it is my honor to give this tribute to Joan from my brother, Ralph. To my Joan. As you know, Joan, a favorite quote of mine is, "Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend." For over 60 years, Joan, you did just that. Did I say I loved you enough? Probably not. But I hope you know, Joan, that no one ever loved anybody as much as I loved you. Did I say thank you enough? Probably not. But to say thank you for all you did doesn't seem like much. The night you pulled me out of bed, got me to the hospital, where you were told, had you not got me there when you did, I may not have made it through the night. I stayed in the hospital for 6 weeks, and after that, through 6 months of recovery, you looked after my every need. Years later, after 2 knee surgeries, again, you drove me everywhere and looked after my every need. How do I say thank you for that? But I do thank you, Joan. I thank you for being my wife for over 60 years. And I thank you for Nadine, Lawrence, and Jeff, your 3 children. And I thank you for being my friend. I'm sure you'll find a slot machine up there. Ron and Sheila will have happy hour in the campfire tonight. Irv, John, Larry, and George will be there too. And when you find Brianne, give her a big hug from all of us. God bless you, Joan. Rest in peace.
So as you know, Joan and Ralph love music, and so we're going to have just a closer walk with thee. This will be a time where you can just reflect on all the memories you have of Joan, and just to offer up for those that do pray, to offer up prayers for Ralph and for Pat.
Jesus.
Well, as we draw, it won't be an end. We want to continue this. We're going to have a time of food and refreshments. We know that Joan liked food, and it even is reflected in her kids, with the one being a chef. And I know that I believe Jeff can also cook as well, right, Cindy?
Yep.
He's a great cook, and
Makes a great meatloaf.
I went to her place. I have to tell you, if you want to see beautiful flowers, and also not only these flowers, but that's something else that Joan liked. And what they wanted to do to end this, I thought it'd be only fitting to have her own children come forward. I know that we've had Kevin speak earlier, and Brianne was mentioned, and also there's also her son Salvatore. Is that how you pronounce it?
Salvador.
Salvador.
We just call him Sal.
Yeah. So I mean, there's lots of ways to remember Joan as it's reflected in her children and grandchildren and even great grandchild. But I'm going to ask them to come forward. They're going to tell us how they're going to remember their mom.
Oh, you want to Jeff? You're gonna get it.
I originally had wanted everybody to release a balloon. That was a little hard. So can I get her family and my aunts and uncles? And we have an extra balloon for my mom's sister and her daughter, and we just want to release them there. That's all we want to do.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Come on, Lois. Okay. Okay, so I'll get in the middle. I have 3 because it's for my aunt. We miss you, Mom.